Welcome to Week 8 running back rankings, where half your roster is on a bye. Yes, that includes the Arizona Cardinals, the Detroit Lions, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Las Vegas Raiders, Los Angeles Rams, and Seattle Seahawks. So more important than ever, Hayden, we got to get these starters right, and we got to get the flex spots right as well.
And thank goodness Kenneth Walker's on a bye week, so we don't have to sit here and debate his usage and all that type of stuff for these rankings.
Correct. That was in Stats versus Film. If you want to go back and watch that episode, it's one of the best of the season. Thank you to everyone that spends, 35-minute average watch time on that every single Tuesday evening. Obviously, we'll have running back rankings today. Friday, wide receivers. Saturday, we also have quarterbacks and tight ends. And I don't mean to skip over the Thursday episode with the trades and evaluating yours, my buddy Faraz. So if you still want to get your questions in, we have a couple slots left for video questions. That link is in the description down below. So go and do that, and maybe you'll be featured on tomorrow's episode. All right, let's kick things off with the running back one this week. That is Jonathan Taylor versus the Tennessee Titans. What else is there left to say?
It's obvious, but there's some crazy stats here I do want to hit on. First of all, the Colts are projected for the most points, up at 31 this week, one of the highest of the entire season. They're playing the Tennessee Titans. In his last two games against Tennessee, he has 3 touchdowns in each of them, including 101 yards and then 218 yards. So he's been fantastic against them. And Jeffrey Simmons is dealing with an injury. And if he doesn't play here, it is done. So, I mean, he's at 119 total yards in the pick'em lobby. And if you're making me take a side right now, I would be taking the higher.
And like I mentioned in yesterday's episode, he already has more receiving yards this season than he has in any year since 2021. So it's everywhere. And they're getting him involved in the receiving department early in games too. It's not just, and we haven't seen any real negative game script here for a running back attached to this Colts offense. Yeah, I mean, T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons, one has been out, then the other, and all this type of stuff. If Simmons is out for this one, that is a massive.
He's a beast.
Along with the edge rushers that also missed last week too. They made the Patriots running game look competent. Anyways, Bijan Robinson is number 2. Hayden, I would almost put these in their own tier.
Agreed.
Because these are smash spots against terrible defenses. Yeah. I mean, this is the biggest all-in move you could possibly have for Bijan Robinson in week 8.
Dolphins haven't stopped anybody. They're allowing the most rushing yards per game at 128. And then on top of that, just a little bonus for you guys, 7th most receiving yards to running backs as well. The last 3 games, they faced Quinshon Judkins, 26.5 half PPR points. Kimani Vidal got him 21. Rico Dowdle with that 31-point game. So those 3 superstar running backs acting like it. So Falcons are projected for a bunch of points. And Tyler Allgeier, you could do worse. We'll get to him later on, but there's some splits with Tyler Allgeier. This is the matchup where perhaps both running backs can get home.
Love that one. They're at home, terrible run defense, and Michael Penix looked super questionable last week. That probably is going to factor in here in early down play calling just to run Bijan Robinson over and over. And as you said, the Falcons are projected for 26 points this week. With all that said, Christian McCaffrey, I think 4 of the 7 weeks so far leads the NFL in expected fantasy points at the running back position. However, this time they're on the road against the Houston Texans and actually slight underdogs in this game.
Only projected for 20 points this week. The Texans defensive line is playing like superstars because they have 2 or 3 of them. The Texans have allowed the fewest receiving yards to the position as well. So it's not just that they're dominant against the run. They're actually really good against defending running backs. They have also not faced Christian McCaffrey. So you have to ding Christian McCaffrey's projection a lot because he's facing the Texans, which means he'll probably only score you guys 19 fantasy points this week. You'll have to live with that.
Last week was by far and away his best rushing performance. That so far has unlocked the ceiling of Christian McCaffrey in a way, because the floor is reached every single week with that receiving work. So it'll be interesting. I mean, another test on the underlying metrics that we saw with George Kittle on the field. And actually, the stuff between the guards was really the efficient workload for CMC last week. Yeah. All right, off a bye week, Derrick Henry, you're running back 4. I absolutely love this. I've been advocating for the last 2 weeks for people to be trading for Derrick Henry. He's running back 6 in consensus rankings, so you are slightly higher here.
I'm expecting Lamar Jackson to play. I've expected that the entire time. The team total's up at 28.25 points, and it's just a massive spot. And I looked at the split since he's become a Baltimore Raven. So when the Ravens have scored under 20 points or at 20 points, and that's largely with the backups that he's been dealing with, he's only averaged 10.8 but when they score 21 or beyond, he averages over 20. So this is a really good spot for him here. Bears have been a little bit better the last couple weeks, but they've also faced the Saints last week, then the Commanders, and Daniels was playing through an injury there. The week before that, Ashton Genty had his lone big game of the season at 34 and a half fantasy points. So the Bears are healthier on defense, and they are better than they were in the first month. But I don't think we can take a 2-game sample and just all of a sudden call them like some legendary defense all of a sudden. So I'm sticking with the huge team total and just touchdown here.
And for Derrick Henry, he still has a run of 10 or more yards on 13.6% of his attempts this year, which is actually 7th among 37 running backs with 50 or more carries. The issue, he's just not been on the field because of these negative game scripts, because of them losing. And if you factor in both Lamar Jackson and Ronnie Stanley on the field from Rich Rebar's worksheet, on 44 of those runs this year, he's averaging 6.0 yards per carry. So this is a huge reset point for the Ravens as a whole. I still think that they have a real legitimate shot of making the playoffs, and it all, can be hit on the head this week in terms of this is a turning point, or you're 1-6 and it's absolutely over.
Yeah, I'm just pretending that the first month or so has not occurred.
Well, that's still 6 games.
No, I mean, for fantasy purposes, moving forward, like Lamar's probably going to be my quarterback 1 or 2, and Zay Flowers will be projected well, and same thing with Derrick Henry.
Josh Jacobs, running back 5 at the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was questionable heading into last week, and maybe saw a smaller snap share, but guess what? When they needed him, when they needed to convert short yardage, when they needed to score touchdowns, Josh Jacobs was once again in the game.
Yeah, he's been a clear top 4 fantasy running back this season, scoring just a ridiculous amount of touchdowns. That's not due. That was the exact same that happened last year as well. So this month, he's the RB1 on RB5 usage. It's not the cleanest spot. The team total's down at just under 24 points. The Packers, a lot of the weeks are like at 27, 28. So that just shows you that the Steelers-Packers game is probably going to be pretty balanced, slow pace. That just kind of both operations want to work. I don't think the Steelers' defense is all that good, and I haven't loved their tackling in general. So
nope.
I don't think it's like the most difficult matchup in terms of like efficiency. But we know how Aaron Rodgers wants to play, and that's slow pace. The same thing with the Packers. So this just could be like a lower volume game in general for everybody, but I still like his odds of scoring a touchdown.
Yeah. Steelers defense last Thursday made the Bengals rushing attack look competent.
Yeah.
Good conversation here. James Cook as running back 6. He opened the season as running back 5, running back 2, running back 7, running back 10. And then after kind of 2 down weeks for the entire offense, I feel like he's a bit of an afterthought. Now, he's not really involved in the passing game this season, which is very different than he was earlier on in his career. And again, one of those 2 difficult matchups was against the New England Patriots, who, are top 3 rushing defense in the NFL. And then you have to question yourself, are if the Carolina Panthers a tough matchup? I mean, lately, yes, they've shut down 3 rushing games over the last 3 weeks, but I do think it's a possibility that Sean McDermott in the bye week said, hey, Joe Brady, let's get James Cook involved once again, because in the opening 4 weeks, when we were winning games, he was scoring touchdowns.
They're just huge favorites, top 5 in projected points here. And it's been a bad 2 weeks, and then he had the bye. So I agree that he does seem like an afterthought, but just look at his like last 20 games, and this is kind of where he belongs. And I was kind of buying into that. The Panthers are obviously much better this year than they were last year. I do think that their linebackers can kind of get got, and this could be a spot where you could get James Cook out in the receiving game. So that's what I had in my notes, but even before you said that there. So I think this could be just give him 1 or 2 schemed up touches against them. Sometimes you'll see James Cook on these wheel routes and whatnot. I think this is a good spot to kind of test these backers here. So sticking with the team total really high up, and they have been super balanced, and obviously that centers around James Cook.
0 receptions over the last 2 games. That should change. That should definitely change. Speaking of receptions at the running back position, Devon Achane is your running back 7. This is against the Atlanta Falcons on the road. We know this Dolphins team has really struggled, but Achane has 91 yards or a touchdown in every game this season, which is incredibly consistent in a very inconsistent environment.
I'm just throwing out last week. We're not going to face Myles Garrett every week. We're not going to have that weather. The team total was at like under 16 points by the time the game had kicked off. It's not a great team total here. It's like at 18 or 19 points, but that's against a defense that kind of shuts down the pass right now because they throw a lot of funky stuff. And I do wonder if teams are just going to continue to try to run the ball against them. And then for the Dolphins' perspective, that also means throwing the ball out to the flats quickly. So you don't have to like read things out, just get the ball out. So all that stuff is good news for Devon Achane. So if you just look at the weeks 1 through 6, he's averaging 18 half PPR points on 14.5 expected points. Those are clear RB1 numbers. It was just the last week that felt disgusting, but that was extremely predictable. I think I end up having, like I said, the running back 14 in rankings, which I never do. So it was like projectably bad last week. And I think this week looks a lot cleaner.
This Falcons defense is so interesting to look at from an underlying metric standpoint, because in a lot of areas they're actually a positive, but then when you watch the games, teams can really beat up on them between the tackles. I don't know if the Dolphins have the blocking to beat up teams between the tackles. So, I mean, they did have a 40-something yard run with Devon Achane last week between the tackles. I just don't know if that is like a even copy paste thing that we should be looking at against a lesser defense, albeit, again, one that the spreadsheets absolutely love in many categories.
And I don't get this fetish over these small tight ends that they keep bringing in. Of all the tight ends to replace Darren Waller, they go get Greg Dulcich. It's like, when are you going to learn your lesson that maybe your ground game is bad because all of your tight ends weigh 236 pounds?
Right. They should also draft left guards in the second round of the NFL draft that actually move their feet when they block too.
Well, yeah, and he played right guard and right tackle, and then they can go left guard. It's too much. It's not great.
Yeah. But again, CMC has an astronomical target share of about 27%. The running back right behind him, albeit a slight drop off, is Devon Achane at 20%. So that always helps, no matter what the environment is. Saquon Barkley is next at running back 8. I mean, if I told you that the Philadelphia Eagles are 5-2 at this point, is that correct?
4-2 or 5-2, I forget. Yeah, 5-2.
I would be stunned that Saquon Barkley here in week 8 ranks as the running back 8 on the week. But again, from the worksheet, 30% of his runs have failed to gain yards this year.
Yep.
The highest rate out of 37 running backs with 50 or more attempts. That is not one of the rates, Hayden, that you want to be among the highest in the NFL.
No, and I've been saying it like from week 1. The offensive line is better in pass protection. The run blocking has been extremely mediocre. If you look at like yards before contact and all those numbers, they're like closer to 18th overall, where last year they were easily the best rushing offense in the league. So Cam Jurgens, they don't know if he's going to play in this one, left last week. That's their starting center. So they're going to be moving some interior guys back and forth. Landon Dickerson playing through injuries. They were downgraded from Mekhi Becton at right guard this offseason. I don't think the tackle's been playing as well. So there's a lot of issues here. Now, with Saquon Barkley, you do get the Giants, who have been the highest in rushing EPA allowed. They have smaller edge rushers who are dominating against the pass, but you can run on them. And then they're like all-pro defensive tackle has not had an all-pro caliber season. They were struggling at linebacker. So this is a spot where you could pick your battle and have an explosive run or two here. But he also has to get them because he's not going to catch so many passes. The goal line stuff goes to Jalen Hurts and Dallas Goedert, and a lot of their actual points come on these 30-yard passing plays. So he's kind of squeezed out. So he has to have a good, efficient game on the ground. I think he will, but he also pretty much has to do that.
Yeah, like you said, Giants allowing 31st, I should say, in yards per carry to running backs, 30th in explosive run rate allowed at the same time. That Thursday night game when these two teams played just 2 games ago, he had 31 yards in his opening 2 carries. And I set out a tweet very early, way too early. That was like, oh, this game's over if Saquon is running for that clip because, he hadn't been able to hit that total in weeks. And then he didn't match that mark for the rest of the game after that. I mean, he hasn't reached 100 yards total in a game so far this season. And the craziest part of it all, Hayden, again, you keep pointing out the offensive line. We do that in Stats versus Film every week. Eye test wise, I don't think Saquon looks like any different. It's not, I can see, he's fallen off a cliff as an individual talent. It's just nowhere to go, period.
Yeah. Yep. So many of their runs are just for no yards. And then there's been a lot of holdings and stuff that have completely delayed drives as well. And that's just because they have backups on the interior. So Yeah, this is an aggressive ranking for where he's been this month, the RB23 and RB25 rank usage.
Before we go any further, if you want to support us, the best way of doing that is to support Underdog. Yes, the Dog app. Obviously, we have the Witching Hour every single Sunday at 3 Eastern, but more importantly, a couple seasons ago, when we started this channel, we were not in 41 of 50 states like we are in this moment. So some of you who have been joining us for, season 3 or season 4 can now play on Underdog like you never have before. We've got prediction markets, we've got champions, we've got pick'em, and obviously we have drafts on a weekly basis. And with basketball season starting, and we have hockey and we have everything else under the sun. So go and play in the Dog app, use promo code the show, or click the link in the description down below. If you play $5 your first time, we'll give you $100 in bonus cash on top of it.
On that note, real quick, 100 total yards for Saquon Barkley in the pick'em lobby. The next back is at 81.5. So there's kind of a teardrop if you're looking at just total yardage from the first list now down to the next.
Okay. Well, the next one is Javonte Williams, who you floated as a maybe running back 5 the rest of the way. Speaking of the rest of the way, this might be his most difficult matchup. He's on the road at the Denver Broncos here.
Yeah, just a really tough spot. He's been the RB10 and RB3 usage this month, and that's when the offensive line was really injured, and now they get CeeDee Lamb back. So the fact that Dak Prescott has elevated this team to being top 3, top 5 in most offensive metrics, despite playing with a lot of backups, just shows you how good this offense is going to be down the stretch. Now, the Cowboys are really good. They're 12th best against the position. The team total's lower at 23.5, which is still above average, but they've been scoring like 30 points per game. The positive with this is both teams run at a pretty fast pace. They don't spend too much time in between plays, lots of no huddles, a lot of quick screen passes and whatnot to keep the just the offense kind of in rhythm. So maybe there's more just plays than expected here. And the Cowboys defense being as bad as it is, I do think that's just going to make this game pretty close down the stretch. So tough matchup, but I still just can't get away from the usage.
Okay, let's talk about Rachaad White. He's your running back 10. This is at the New Orleans Saints, who got ran through last week by the Chicago Bears. Rachaad White, I believe, is their last game before the bye.
Yep.
Bucky Irving already ruled out here ahead of week 8, and maybe he returns in week 10. So we do have Rachaad White as running back 1 for at least one more week.
Just a great spot in general. So in his 3 starts, he's averaging 14.1 expected points. That's the equivalent of RB11 usage. He's been very efficient in general. We talked about in the short yardage success rate at 94%. That's leading the NFL with at least 11 carries. We talked about that on Stats versus Film. And then in general, whenever the Bucs are missing their wide receivers, they don't really kind of replace it with wide receivers. The running backs and the tight ends get a big bump as well. So no Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin in this one. The team total, despite those injuries, is still really high at 25.5 points. They get the Saints here, and New Orleans allowed 5 different running backs to reach at least 16 half PPR points this season. So it's just a really good spot for Rachaad White. He's got to be the centerpiece of this. And they've had some issues in the trenches in New Orleans, and at linebacker, there's a couple plays where you just start taking screenshots and there's like not even anyone in the vicinity of these running backs. So I think it's just a great spot to fire up Rachaad White.
Here's a question for you. So with how Rachaad White is playing right now, coming out of the bye week, will Bucky Irving be able to sustain his 73% snap share like he had in weeks 1 through 3?
I know. I mean, it's kind of like a reverse of what's happening last year. I think Rachaad White's taken a step this year. He's running a little bit more physically, which was kind of the big knock on him earlier on. He's very well trusted. And if the shoulder injury, it was not even the initial thing was a foot, but then they're like, oh, the shoulder's what's actually been bugging him. This team is going to be playing in the playoffs. So why would you give him 75% snaps if you don't have to? I think it could be more of a 60-40, 50-50. This could be the next Rico Dowdle situation. Who knows?
Guys, I know what it's like. As soon as you feel like that first briskness of fall or winter, you want some new pieces for your wardrobe. It all looks old from before. For me, peak attire, when I'm walking my dog in the morning, it's like 55 degrees, is a sweater on top, hoodie, whatever you want, and then shorts on the bottom. And specifically, Chubby's shorts, because they are stretchy. You can get them in different lengths, all these different colors, just super comfortable on that morning stroll. Plus, there's also the NFL licensed apparel that they have. I mean, football season is here. The Chubby's collection is officially licensed by the NFL. I mean, bold polos you could have, fan-ready mesh shorts. If you just want to crash on your couch, they have something for you instead of having a jersey or a jersey that you get from other providers. And would you look at that, folks, for a limited time, our friends at Chubby's are giving our listeners 20% off with promo code The Show at chubbysshorts.com/the show. That's a 20% off your order with promo code The Show at chubbysshorts.com/the show. Support our show and tell them we sent you. Field your best fit with Chubby's. All right, Cam Skattebo is next as running back 11, again, at the Philadelphia Eagles. His low for yardage in his last 5 games is 90 yards.
Wow.
We all remember what happened a couple weeks ago in this game. I believe he had, 3 touchdowns in that? The big difference is Jalen Carter is playing, we think, in this game, unless something happens, before the first snap. And we've talked about it a lot, that Jalen Carter is such a difference maker, and it's with your eyeballs. And also when you look at the numbers, it's like almost a yard and a half better per carry and every other metric you can look at too.
Yeah. Why are these two teams playing each other? They just played each other. I never get that. Sometimes ridiculous. That happens. I was like, week 6, this just happened. But yeah, he had 110 total yards in that one. He's not going to score 3 touchdowns in this one. Giants only projected for 18. That's the 3rd fewest points of the week. They're in Philadelphia with Jalen Carter, and their best offensive lineman plays left tackle, so they're not even going to see each other at all. So I'm still clinging on to. He's the RB9 on RB4 usage this month. I'm expecting things to look worse this week, but he's earned it. He can have an off week and still finish as an RB2.
At the same time, his last 3 road games, he either has 6 catches or a receiving touchdown in those games. So still an easy start as like that fringe running back 1, running back 2 at this moment.
Yeah.
Next is DeAndre Swift. We have a clip posting on our socials right now that, to us, DeAndre Swift is maybe playing his best football in 2 seasons. And at the same time, no one gets excited about it. But here he is at the Baltimore Ravens. Hayden, we talked about the offense resetting. What needs to equally reset, maybe even more so, is the defense of the Ravens, because the last time they were on the field, they got boat raced by the Houston Texans offense.
Yes, the Ravens are getting a lot healthier on defense. They're still missing their best player up the middle, and he's not going to play the entire season. But it's more about DeAndre Swift and the usage in general. So he's been effective. I think credit to Ben Johnson, credit to the offensive line, but also credit to DeAndre Swift. He's hitting these cutback lanes on outside zone, and he's RB8 in usage this month. So I think they have a plan in place for him. Remember, he's under contract next year as well. So I don't think there's going to be like handing over the keys to Kyle Monangai. DeAndre Swift has earned it. He makes a couple plays out in space, especially like on broken plays and screens and whatnot too. So even if this game is a lot of Baltimore Ravens touchdowns, DeAndre Swift's going to have chances in the receiving game as well. So I traded for him in Dynasty, and I'm trying to buy back some DeAndre Swift love, just because it doesn't seem like he's getting enough credit for where I think this offense is going, where Ben Johnson's going, and then DeAndre Swift can make some mental mistakes and still pay off if the explosiveness is still there.
Over the last 2 games, we know Theo Benedette popped in at left tackle. Theo Benedette of British Columbia. Ever since then, Hayden, DeAndre Swift has averaged 8.3 yards per rush on runs to the left side of the offensive line. However, this Ravens defense, they've only allowed 3.5 yards per carry on outside zone runs, which is 8th best in the league. And that's really where Swift has kind of made his mark. Monangai was doing a lot of stuff, though, between the tackles. So maybe they have figured it out just across the offensive line, too.
I'd be curious how they grade that, because a lot of these runs are all the way to the right on outside zone. He cuts it back off the left tackle, but that's like way going to the right. So I'd be curious how they grade that. The point of attack always seems to be towards the right tackle, who's a total animal.
Next is Quinshon Judkins. This is your running back 13. This is at the New England Patriots. Again, I'll repeat that the New England Patriots arguably have a top 3 rushing defense. I mean, they've kept the Green Bay Packers to 94 yards rushing. I think the Detroit Lions to 82 yards rushing. We know Quinshon had an amazing 40-yard touchdown last week against the Miami Dolphins to go along with 2 other rushing scores. But this is a big, big test for not just him, but this offensive line as well.
You can feel how physical the Patriots defense is up front, and the Browns really, their offensive line is really bad. So it's incredible that Quinshon Judkins is able to do what he's done this season. This is a very difficult test, and I think we have to be pretty picky with how we're going to view Quinshon Judkins week to week, because he will be an RB1 when game scripts are positive. Just look at last week, and then he will play 40% of the snaps if the game script flips, and we're at the mercy of, Dylan Gabriel, a bad offensive line, and everything else. So this one, the Patriots are supposed to win by 7. The Browns are projected for the fewest amount of points in the league. Like you mentioned with New England, they're allowing only 3.2 yards per carry to running backs. They're 5th best against fantasy running backs in general. So this is by no means an easy task for Quinshon Judkins. And still, this month, he's the RB13 and RB7 usage, just a total animal out there. So 79.5 total yards in the pick'em lobby. And if they do score touchdowns, a lot of them you have to think are going to end up going to Quinshon.
The Browns are projected for the same amount of points as the Tennessee Titans, if you want to put that in perspective.
Never good.
And I don't want to zoom in too much, but like you said, when trailing in a negative game scripts, I do think like the Dylan Gabriel-led version of this offense will be slightly different than the Joe Flacco one, where Stefanski was still giving Quinshon like 8 carries in fourth quarters when Joe Flacco was at quarterback. And now I think he's more okay, I should say, when trailing of, hey, let's see what Dylan can do when we can throw the football 40, 50. We've seen it, 60 times nearly of dropbacks for Dylan Gabriel in a game. So that takes away, again, 5, 6 opportunities from Quinshon in blowouts. And this one could kind of be a blowout potentially. Next up is J.K. Dobbins. It's a J.K. Dobbins week. I mean, this is against the Dallas Cowboys. Terrible at defending the run, and especially when they're in light boxes. I wonder if that's how Sean Payton can talk himself into running more, is, okay, let's spread it out with all these role players and then run J.K. Dobbins up the middle against a defense that is a sieve in the run game.
Yeah, they can't stop anybody. They're not adding anybody yet, so I think we should just keep attacking this one. Broncos, this one surprised me. I mean, I guess not really because it's the Cowboys, but they're 4th in team total this week at 27 points. Despite how bad the Broncos have been, they're still projected that much. That means the Dallas Cowboys are like a complete outlier. So everyone knows that. I'm not saying anything new here. I'm expecting a bigger week for J.K. Dobbins, who also you have to kind of pick your spots with, because they're not super run committed. RJ Harvey got a couple snaps and carries in the first quarter, but largely for the rest of the game, it was J.K. Dobbins. So we'll get to RJ Harvey in a second. I think you could do worse during bye weeks than him just because the team total is so high, but the offense is still very focused around J.K. Dobbins when they do run it.
Right. They just need to run the ball more.
I agree.
This isn't the 2024 version of this running game. Like J.K. Dobbins and RJ Harvey have done some really nice things this season. So Sean Payton just needs to lean into that more often. Next is Chase Brown, running back 15. This is against the New York Jets. I mentioned it versus the Steelers last week. He had like a 35-yard run, a 25-yard run, a 12-yard run. But this Jets run defense has actually come around versus, us poking holes in the defense overall after Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich and those guys. And at the same time, the Bengals are not going to be trailing here, you would like to think. They're favored by a significant figure in this game. And I don't know if we've been really able to say that since about week 3. And if that's the case, maybe Chase Brown gets a bit more run here.
Just a way better spot. It was already a much better spot last week for him. And then I looked at the team total. It's at 25.5. You are right that the Jets defense is getting some guys back. Quincy Williams, he was activated off of injured reserve. That does not mean he's going to play here, but that is one thing to note, the linebacker for the Jets. But they got an edge rusher back a couple weeks ago. So it's just a really good spot because the team total is, instead of being 15.5, it's 25.5. So it's as simple as that. He goes from RB3 back to RB2. And I think there's chances he can have some explosives again if the offense is pretty is spreading things out and they're at the goal line more, and there's going to be more options for him to score a touchdown.
Kimani Vidal, running back 16. The air raid system in the NFL just did not use their running back last week in trail mode, but he still played 65% of snaps. It just stinks when they totally abandon the run. Actually, it doesn't stink. It's just really fun to watch when the Chargers do that. I would rather them do that than, get the football to Kimani Vidal, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, with all due respect, I totally agree. Hassan Haskins did not practice the last couple of days. We'll see if he gets cleared on a short week here. This is Thursday Night Football. I think I'm going to be going to this one. I will let you guys know if Joe Alt and Trey Pipkins are going to play. They both have a chance to suit up. I think that Joe Alt is trying to play. That would be a pretty big deal, getting at least a couple of their starters back, even if they are playing through injury. So the Vikings defense, I don't have a good feel for them. I don't think they're going to spook Justin Herbert. He's just like too smart. Greg Roman's been around for too long to get completely fooled by this defense, and they have not stopped the run at times. They've been lit up through the air at times. So I do think the Chargers could be in a pretty good spot on a short week with the Minnesota Vikings traveling across the country. But no, it's on Haskins. It would just be there's no competition for Kimani Vidal anymore.
I haven't prepared you for this. And at the same time, I haven't been doing it in recent weeks. Can we talk about the other pieces in Thursday Night Football as well? We'll obviously talk about Jordan Mason here in a moment, but how are we looking with the Lad McConkey, QJ, Keenan Allen, and now Rhamondre Gadsden dynamic versus this Viking secondary that just got torched by AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Hurts?
They're all startable, definitely. I will probably be ranking Lad McConkey the highest for the rest of the way. This month, he's the wide receiver 8 in usage. Keenan's wide receiver 10. Quinton Johnson, wide receiver 19, removing that one game that he didn't play. So all three of them have hovered as top 24 throughout. I think the added wrinkle of Rhamondre Gadsden does complicate things a little bit, but I think for the most part, it's going to be through the wide receivers here. So I feel good about all of them. None of them are going to be wide receiver ones for me, but I think a lot of them are going to end up in the teens, low 20s.
Yeah. So in a week with all the buys and stuff, play all those wide receivers. And then, yeah, Gadsden's going to be, I guess my only concern here is if they do take the lead, how much will Rhamondre Gadsden play? Like, we haven't seen the Chargers necessarily in like super positive game script, it feels lately. Could like Will Dissly get those involvements over Rhamondre Gadsden? I don't know.
Yeah. And with these young tight ends, we've seen it with Fan, and Fan will pop off, then have 2 quiet games, then pop off again. Like that should be the expectation for rookie tight ends, especially like day 3 types that are.
Are you telling me the expectation shouldn't be 146 yards every game for Rhamondre Gadsden?
Well, that's the low end. This thing's trending up. It can be like 185. Who knows? He'll probably be like tight end 12, tight end 10.
Breece Hall is next. Running back 17 at the Cincinnati Bengals. Low-key bounce back spot here for Breece?
I mean, I guess. They don't know who the quarterback's going to be. I also looked into it. Since 2021, when Tyrod was like no longer with the Chargers, and then when Justin Fields started his career, EPA per play, it's basically the same at 0 per play for both of them. Completion percentage over expected is about the same. Tyrod gets the slight lean, and then when they start games, Tyrod's team adds 20 points, and then same thing with Justin Fields at 20. So they stylistically different. The end result just about the same. So I don't think we should make any kind of changes for Breece Hall. Maybe at the goal line, he's more likely to score a touchdown, which I like. Maybe Tyrod Taylor is going to throw more passes. So in general, I think I would rather have Tyrod instead of Justin Fields for Breece Hall. It's a fine enough spot. You get the Bengals here. The team total is up around 20 points. So it's better this week than it has been in previous weeks.
Reason I asked that is the Bengals have allowed 8 top 15 rushers this season, just at running back. And then they've been dreadful versus inside runs so far this season. What we're really hoping for is the Jets to lose the toss, the Bengals to defer, the Jets get the football, then they can't stop them on defense, and then they get the football again before they're down about 14 points without Sauce Gardner on the field. Yeah. So we need like a couple drives here before the Bengals with their wide receivers run up the score here.
But this would be a good week. They promised all this Breece Hall receiving work. We haven't really seen that. I'm guessing they're going to just blame that on Justin Fields, but if it is Tyrod Taylor, like there's no excuses, especially if Garrett Wilson's not going to play. Also, Breece Hall is day-to-day with the ankle injury. He was able to finish the game. Didn't look that serious, but ankle injuries with time, you never know. Free
20. All right. Jaylen Warren, running back 18 for you against the Green Bay Packers. Jaylen Warren, once again, based on what side of the bed Arthur Smith wakes up on, led and dominated, I should say, in snap share of this Steelers defense. However, I am slightly nervous, I should say, of the Packers defense and their interior specifically overwhelming this Steelers offensive line.
Completely agree on all fronts. The Packers have only allowed 2 running backs to have more than 10 half PPR points this entire season. That's a pretty low threshold. They're third best against the position in general. Steelers are only projected for 20 3/4 points, despite being at home here. So just kind of figuring out exactly what the usage is going to be between the backs. I'm guessing that first week back from injury in the bye, that's the outlier. And then the other 4 games where he was the kind of a workhorse is more in line with what should be expecting here. And in those 4 games, he was equivalent to like the RB7 in usage. Way more difficult matchup here. And I'm not banking that's going to hold on. So he's more of an RB2. But I think that he's earned like pretty clear RB2 status until proven otherwise.
Love all of that. Not sure I love Alvin Kamara. Look, whenever we get a 2-person backfield really siloed into one singular player, and especially with someone who has the fantasy football history that Alvin Kamara does, your initial reaction is to have some excitement for him the rest of the season. Unfortunately, this week, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Vita Vea versus now a backup center after Eric McCoy is also lost for the season. Alvin Kamara also does not have more than 31 rushing yards in each of his last 3 games. And then he does have at least 3 receptions over the last 4 games, but 2 of those games are prior to that, 2 and 1 receiving yards. So
yeah,
I don't know. To me, the Saints offense will just continue to flow through the high variance-ness of Spencer Rattler and Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed.
Very nervous about Vita Vea. I posted a clip last week where Vita Vea, absolutely mauled the center. And now we're talking about the backup center for the Saints. The guard play has been really bad. So they're not going to be able to run the ball. But at the same time, the Bucs have allowed the most receiving yards to running backs this year. So that's where I'm kind of in a full PPR scam scenario. I do think this could be a week where Alvin Kamara gets more involved there. And if he does get down to the goal line before, I wouldn't be sure if it's going to be Kendre Miller. I would be pretty stunned if Devin Neal from a 6th-round rookie just comes in there and just starts stealing goal line work for Alvin Kamara. It'd be more likely to be like Taysom Hill. So don't love the spot like you're saying. But the team total is actually not like completely egregious right now. And just the fact that the slower linebackers for the Buccaneers, this could be a spot where Kellen Moore is like, you know what, let's throw him a couple angle routes. Let's get him on some swing passes. Let's get a screen going and maybe kind of calm things down for Spencer Rattler, because you're also dealing with like an inexperienced quarterback against Todd Bowles. If you're Kellen Moore, why not have 6 plays on the call sheet that's like, all right, it's 3rd and 12. Let's just get Calvin Kamara out in space and see what happens.
I think a normal week, he'd probably be closer to running back 25, 26 for you. And so more of like a flex consideration. But again, how things are unfolding this week with all the bye weeks. He's running back 2 for you. And
wait till you guys see understand. RB 30, 31, 32. It's bottom of the barrel.
We're literally stopping the list today at running back 33 because there's no one else to talk about.
Good.
Okay. Isiah Pacheco is next as running back 20. This is against the Washington Commanders. We've been on this where eye test wise, he looks better than he has, let's say, in over a year. The only thing is they get 3 running backs involved, but hey, in this game, they might score 30 plus points, and that could lead us to some goodness here for Isiah Pacheco.
I'm middle grounding this ranking. He could either be RB 15 for me or down to like RB 25. I don't know if Kareem Hunt's going to play or not. He did not come back much after that ankle injury, and it looked like some type of high ankle sprain, which who knows even what a high ankle sprain means anymore. That can be 1 week, 6+ weeks. We don't even know anymore. So I don't know if he's going to play or not. If he misses, Isiah Pacheco is like the most underrated fantasy asset there is. They're projected for the 2nd most points as a team against the Commanders. The Chiefs have also been 2nd in running back usage. They get these guys going at the goal line. They're scoring 1 million points. They'll throw it to their backs. I think Isiah Pacheco behind this offensive line is actually capable of explosives. I could not say that last year behind that version of the offensive line and that version of Pacheco. So we'll see, man. I'll have Brashard Smith in the flex range as well if Kareem Hunt doesn't suit up. So I think it's one of the most important injuries in fantasy this week, because I think both of these guys would be starters. And I think that Isiah Pacheco would be somebody I would be like circling in the pick'em lobby, DFS, battle royale draft. And then in your on your 1 and 6 team with Isiah Pacheco, you might have a chance to start picking up some steam again.
No, I think that's a heck of a note, because in the normal phase of play, Brashard Smith is basically doing Kadarius Toney stuff, right? He's not really doing true running back stuff. Now, he did get the 4th quarter carries and all that type of stuff. Yeah. But so it really could be a dominant workload for Isiah Pacheco if Kareem Hunt is out. So Love that note. Okay, Jordan Mason is the other part of that Thursday Night Football showdown. This is at the Los Angeles Chargers. He has had 4 rushing touchdowns over the last 4 games. He's also handled at least 70% of the backfield touches in the last 3 weeks. We know this Chargers defense has gotten run over recently. We also have Aaron Jones being active or reactivated, I should say, from IR. We're not exactly sure what his role is going to be for TNF. Jordan Mason has to continue to dominate the workload, though, in order to like really pay off or score a touchdown, because he's not catching passes.
Right. Yeah. He just lost the receiving work to my boy Xavier Scott. I would be pretty surprised if Aaron Jones comes back and plays on a short week. They seem obsessed with practices, and I would just run counter to that. It's a below average team total, under 21 points. They're on the road. Like I said, their offensive line's like fairly healthy at this point. They're missing their center, but everyone else is back and ready to go. He's been the RB22 and RB23 usage this month. A couple really weird games, like blowout comeback mode, where he's been phased out. So actually, I think I like him a little bit more than this. Actually, put Alvin Kamara behind these two guys. Let's do that.
Okay.
I think that makes more sense based on our conversation. Yeah.
I mean, Bill Croskey-Merritt put up 150 yards and 2 scores against this Chargers team, and we know a lot of those were those outside runs. Devon Achane and that offensive line went for 150 yards and 2 scores. Jonathan Taylor, just a cool 3 touchdowns and 137 yards last week. Jordan Mason's a fun runner, man. Anything you want to say about the Vikings wide receivers, where they have 2 scores in the top 12 overall right now, basically?
Yeah, I mean, those are really funky game scripts that they've been a part of, just chasing a million points. This game is expected to be closer. You just never know. Carson Wentz, as he throws interceptions in the first quarter or the last quarter, that will dictate how many pass attempts that they're going to have. So obviously, you start Justin Jefferson as a top 5-10 guy every single week, especially during the bye weeks. And Jordan Addison will be in my top 24. And he's been playing a hell of a lot better than that. A little bit of a homecoming for Jordan Addison. Last time he was in town, he was, on the 5.
He only spent like a season there, isn't that right? And he had like worse stats than he did at Pittsburgh and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Hey, Kenny Pickett. It's hard to compete with the Kenny Pickett era at Pitt. You only had Caleb Williams.
And Cliff. That was when we were frustrated with Cliff, right?
Well, they threw a million screens to not Jordan Addison, to everybody else on that team. Man,
who was it to? Like Brendan Rice or someone?
Yeah, it was that era.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, Rhamondre Stevenson is up next, off of easily his best performance of the season against the Tennessee Titans, and actually against the Miami Dolphins. He had a strong week as well. But in literally every other game, Hayden, he has not rushed for more than 38 yards.
No.
And then,
it's so bad.
And then now he gets the Cleveland Browns defense. So what's going to happen here?
I posted that EPA chart, and the Colts are super effective. The Panthers were very effective on the ground. And the only team that's like certified an outlier on the bad side running the ball is the Patriots. Everywhere else, like from 31 to 3, there's no difference. And then you have the Patriots on one end, the Colts and the Panthers on the other end. So
they get no push.
Yeah, they get nothing. And it's predictable. At least the offensive line is holding up in pass protection. They're not getting any push. It was a 90-10 split before garbage time this last week, and I see no reason to change that. So I'm kind of expecting that to be the case. It was a season high in expected points at 14.2. If you kind of carry that, that's like RB12 usage. So it's a extremely tough spot. You get the freaking Cleveland Browns. They're only allowed 3.5 yards per carry. This guy, Myles Garrett, they have to deal with. So I'm expecting a lot of touches, a lot of snaps, and we'll see about the effectiveness of them.
I will say Cleveland's defense is like slightly worse when on the road, and they are on the road here. So maybe just a little bit of hope overall for this offense. And it's the Titans too. The Titans have been bad at run blocking at the same time.
They're tiny.
Okay, the Panthers running backs are next. I'm a little surprised that they're this low, Hayden. I mean, you have Rico Dowdle as running back 23. Chuba Hubbard is running back 24. I understand they're underdogs here, but this Buffalo defense has been miserable versus the run this season. I mean, they've allowed a league high 5.4 yards per carry to running backs. They've allowed 116 rushing yards per game to backfields, which is 30th in the league. They need Daquan Jones back, but I believe he's still out with a calf injury. And this is also a backfield, Hayden, that rushed for 200 plus yards in back-to-back games against bad rushing defenses. So I'm certainly not picking the Panthers to win this game, but among like all the narratives you can paint, there is one for the Panthers to have an upset here if they just, run for 200 plus yards again.
This is where I'm kind of conflicted with this matchup because I see the same thing. They're going to try to run the ball and they're going to try to keep it on pace. And the Panthers have been very effective. And it's exactly how you typically beat the Buffalo Bills. They can do that. And at the same time, they're only projected for 19 points. And if Josh Allen has one of those games in the first half, then they're just not going to be able to run the ball as they have been when they, what's their winning streak right now? Like they're winning all these games. Like if that changes, then you're like, okay, I've cut the backfield in half and now they're chasing points. That's where the low end outcome is. So maybe this is a little bit too low, but I can see this thing kind of swinging each direction. And it could be a big Chuba game and the Rico is less efficient. You never know.
My only counter, and I understand it if it was just one running back we're talking about, they would rank higher, right? That's
Oh yeah.
And now we're literally doing a series by series thing, and Chuba got the start in the next series with Rico, so on and so forth. One note though, they did get a really good offense that was on fire, and Dak Prescott did have one of those games, and they still just were able to, like, again, in a very similar matchup, get over 200 rushing yards. So that is going to be the entire part of this, is just to run the football.
Put Kamara behind Rico.
Oh, sorry, Alvin. Promo code Alvin all the way.
Wow, I forgot about promo code Alvin. Why did that end? I forget.
I think 99% of this company has no idea about promo code Alvin.
And nor should they. Yeah, it's a good point on the Panthers. Like, of all the teams, if they're losing by 10 points at halftime, they're going to still come out there and try to run the ball. Like, that's just how.
And at the same time, like, maybe the Bills' rushing defense is better at this point. Like, maybe Matt Milano does play and these types of things. But like, Dak was on a freaking heater. They couldn't stop George Pickens, and yet they still rushed for over 200 in that game.
Last question on this one. Rico, Dowdle, Chuba, Hubbard, drive.
Rico just looks better, man. And they're not going to change it at all. Dave Canales said they're not going to change it. But Rico looks like the better player, and you can really see it when he's facing, like diving linebacker tackles or DBs trying to tackle him on the edge, and he just breaks those tackles, and Chuba's going down on them. Long time. I mean, basically lifers of this channel or my content. Remember the days back when I used to live in Connecticut? I would do live periscopes while cooking and answering your questions. You know me. I love a good steak. And I absolutely loved when we got this house that had an extra refrigerator and freezer downstairs. My brain instantly went to, I can keep a whole bunch of steaks, burgers, pork tenderloins, all that stuff in this freezer, in this refrigerator. And guess what? Omaha Steaks freaking hooked me up. I can't wait to have some compound butter with some shallots, some parsley, some lemon zest in there as well, some unsalted butter. You whisk it up when it gets room temperature and boom, put in the freezer and fridge. And then when you perfectly make your steak medium, that's me on my New York strip, and then put a little dollop on top, let it drizzle out. Once it's perfectly done on that sear, we got it covered. And Omaha Steaks, bang, beef tenderloin, nailed it. And if you want some dessert at the same time, we got some frozen caramel apple tartlets on top. Omaha Steaks is the perfect place to hook you up. So save big with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide. 50% off site-wide with an extra 20% off select favorites during their early Black Friday sale. Go and fill up your freezer. Go and fill up your refrigerator. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code THESHOW at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's, again, 50% off at omahasteaks.com. Promo code THESHOW at checkout. All right, Woody Marks dominated the backfield last week. I mean, 61% of snaps, and that doesn't even begin to tell the story of how many more touches that he had. I know one of our coworkers, I'm not sure if you get this, Hayden, just in the Slack DMs, sometimes just get random, hey, start sit questions. Would you start this guy or this guy?
Oh, yeah.
And last week I had one of, hey, would you start Woody Marks or Nick Chubb? And then got an update this morning of, hey, man, you won me my week because of that last second touchdown by Woody Marks.
Let's go.
There we go.
Love it. This is, to me, a backfield where there's clearly defined roles, and it's on us to figure out if the Texans are going to try to pass the ball or they're going to try to run the ball. In this one, it's supposed to be close, so it makes it very difficult here. Last week was a season high in usage for Woody Marks when they were chasing points. So I think that's feather in his cap coming off the post by rookie bump. A lot of that was in the fourth quarter. The Niners defense is, I think, well coached. You said they're very prepared. I agree with that. They seem to just give a shit right now. But they are missing their two best defensive players. So I'm kind of breaking it towards Woody Marks in this one because Nico Collins in the concussion protocol. It's a shorter week for him to get back. Did not practice today. I'm assuming he's going to be out. If Nico Collins is out, they're probably going to run the ball a little bit more, and they might throw the ball to Woody Marks a couple times extra just because their only guy that can get open right now that they play is probably going to be out.
We'll move on because Bill Croskey-Merritt is here as running back 26. He now owns this backfield, but they are projected for one of the lowest totals of the week, and they're on the road in Kansas City, who are projected for a ton of points at 29.5, again, versus the 17 that the Commanders are. So despite Bill being clearly the best talent, he's not being utilized in the receiving game. And if that's the case, he basically has to luck box into a short yardage touchdown here.
This is the Brian Robinson role. I think Jacory's better. He's got better chance of scoring a long touchdown than B-Rob ever did, but he is game script dependent, and they are expected to lose by 12.5 points. So I agree that he's dominating touches when the game is close, but he doesn't play. Like, he's straight up like not even on the football field when they're in the second half. And that's what happened last week when Chris Rodriguez gets a goal line touch. Jeremy McNichols is playing a lot of snaps late. So we'll see. They're projected for what, at 17? That's got to be the lowest or the third lowest. I mean, they're a quarter point better than the Tennessee Titans and the Cleveland Browns. So I think we should probably make some adjustments here.
Now, I did look at NFL Pro. The Commanders are first in the NFL on outside the tackle running back carries and fourth out of shotgun. And the Chiefs are 22nd and 17th at defending those. But, you know, I'm not going to hang my hat on the
By the way,
Chris this week.
Chris Jones, since snap where he's been walking, no one's blocking him right now.
He's been wrecking shop up front, that's for sure. All right, in that same game as Brashard Smith, the fantasy football darling out there. Like we keep saying, it's manufactured touches from the outside. They design screens for him, jet sweeps, all that type of stuff. And look, if the team's going to score 30 points, maybe he, can also get 6 fourth quarter carries when they're up by 14 points.
Yeah, there's a chance that he gets some of the Jerick McKinnon fun stuff in the red area. I don't think it's likely, but it's certainly possible. Just all contingent on if Kareem Hunt's going to play, because he was getting the 2-minute drill. He was getting some carries in the third quarter. They were up by so many points. It's like hard to tell. So in full PPR, I think you could do worse than having Brashard Smith out there, but this is just a sign of the bye weeks that Brashard Smith's even, as high as this.
Moving on, Tyler Allgeier. We brought it up. Fourth quarter hammer. No one likes to tackle him. And they're projected for a ton of points against this Miami team. And this defense absolutely sucks. So this is one of the peak Allgeier-ass games out there.
In 8 games with Bijan, when the Falcons have won by 6 or more points, Allgeier's averaging 9 half PPR points. And the other 15 games, it's at 4.4. So that's a pretty defined split. It makes sense. It's the fourth quarter stuff. When they're running the ball well, they stick with it. And Allgeier's obviously a big part of that. Miami's allowing 128 rushing yards per game to running backs. That is terrible. That's the worst in the NFL. I like Allgeier more than Brashard Smith, just thinking through this. I think there's like the splits are, they're pretty evident. This is like a week where you can put Allgeier into your flex.
I'm sure we'll have a bunch of those questions on the Sunday morning starts it show here on the channel. Okay, let's just close things out because we've already talked about a bunch of these backfields with like Nick Chubb, Kyle Monangai, RJ Harvey, and then we have the 2 Titans running backs really, and I mean really, bringing up the rear here. Any of these names you want to isolate?
Monangai, just getting a temperature check from you. So the first game coming out of the bye, it was like very clearly DeAndre Swift. This last week, it was a little bit more split. They were in control of that game. But Kyle Monangai even got a goal line carry in the first half of that game. It wasn't all DeAndre Swift. They were just so committed to both that they both end up getting home. So it was a season high in usage at 13.6. It's one game of that in 5 games of nothingness. So like for flex kind of consideration, we have to decide, was last week the more kind of telling like 1-2 punch, or was it the first 5 games where it was like 1, obviously DeAndre Swift is the 1, and then 2 is Kyle Monangai, or is it more 1A, 1B? So that's the thing I'm kind of paying attention to because they've been super run heavy the last couple weeks, and they've been effective doing it. So I think there's a chance Kyle Monangai could be a little bit more 1B than secondary to DeAndre Swift, but it's a sample size of 1.
Well, first of all, I think all of the rushing attack was pretty miserable the first 4 weeks of the season.
Yeah. Bad.
And then since the bye, it's very clear that they've just been more effective overall. Darnell Wright's playing really good at right tackle, and we already talked about Benedette at left tackle. I do think that the Monangai rushes, just from going back and watching them, were attacking slightly different areas than the DeAndre Swift ones. And, he has played the first and third most snaps of the season in just these last 2 games since the bye week.
Yep.
So, a lot of our focus is on Luther Burden, and a lot of our focus is on Colson Loveland. But for a 7th round rookie, with Roschon Johnson healthy and on the field, he's not on the field. It's Kyle Monangai instead.
Yep.
And he's also, to me, picking up pass protection a lot better than he was in the preseason earlier on this year. So I'm not saying he's going to totally take away things from DeAndre Swift. I am saying that, hey, Ben Johnson just came from a system that utilized 2 backs. And I think we are going to see maybe more 2-back usage than we did in the opening parts of the season.
Yeah, I think there's a chance he can average 7, 8, 9 fantasy points the rest of the way, which doesn't sound like a lot, but wait till you guys ask us the questions about your flexes this week with all the teams on bye and the wide receiver scoring. Like wide receiver 40 in points averages 7, 8, 9 fantasy points per game. So Kyle Monangai versus like Matthew Golden, like that's not as absurd as you would think. And I think that we need to think through these guys this week just because of buys.
Yeah. And like we talked about with the Broncos, again, projected for 27 points. We have seen other games when they score a lot and run a ton of plays and are in neutral or positive game scripts that RJ Harvey does get involved, and he's had some nice plays in those moments. So it could be, if you're really desperate, a RJ Harvey play this week. All right.
Yep.
That's going to do it. Do you even want to talk about the Titans backfield, or are you good?
I mean, it's 50-50 split now.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
One's
got to get traded.
We're going to get out of here. Thank you for tuning in again. Tomorrow, we have the trade show with Faraz, and we're back with more rankings on Friday and Saturday. So enjoy your evening, enjoy your night. Up the Velo. We'll talk to y'all soon. See ya.